CCTA Planning Committee meeting. And we are going to start with a short video. If we could call everybody's attention to the video, please.
Meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you. Jackie, could you please take roll now?
Member Armstrong?
Here.
Member Carlson?
Here.
Member Xavier?
Here.
Vice Chair Meadows?
Here.
Chair Obringer?
I'm here as well.
All commissioners present?
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda?
No public comment received.
Okay, and there's nothing, nobody on Zoom. Okay. All right, so that is going to conclude the public comment item. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Would anyone like to pull any items from the consent calendar? No? Is there any public comment on the consent calendar, either in person or online?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. We will close the public comment for the consent calendar. And is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Commissioner Carlson, a second by Commissioner Xavier. Would you please call the vote?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Chair Obringer?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are now moving on to our regular agenda items. So the first regular agenda item is item 4A, approval to distribute the final Measure J calendar years 2024 and 2025 Growth Management Program Compliance Checklist for allocation of fiscal years 2025-26 and 26-27 local street maintenance and improvement funds. And we are going to be hearing from, it says, Matt Kelly. Oh, you're appearing to us virtually. Hello and welcome, Matt.
Good afternoon, Chair Obringer and Planning Committee members. Matt Kelly, Director of Planning at CCTA. I wish I could be there today, but I appreciate the opportunity to recover at home and present to you on this important item, perfunctory but important item. And I'll give you a little bit of background because I know there's some new members here on the Planning Committee, but I'm not going to give a detailed presentation, but I'll summarize how the checklist, the ideas behind it, and the actual requirements. So let's start with a little bit of history. We are talking about the Measure J Growth Management Program compliance. So what is the Growth Management Program? It was established back in '88 with Measure C, strengthened under Measure J in 2000, starting in 2009. The main goal is to assure that new development pays for the facilities required to meet the new demands resulting from that new development, requires that our jurisdictions are working together cooperatively in their transportation and land use planning and decisions related to those. And they're sharing information amongst communities, reviewing land use proposals among neighboring jurisdictions, something that's very unique here in California, that's required. The GMP supports land use patterns that make more efficient use of the existing transportation system, consistent with general plans and not requiring as much new infrastructure, and really supports infill development in those existing transit areas, brownfield areas, and reducing the need to develop greenfield areas. So the checklist itself is the mechanism for determining compliance with the GMP requirements. It's submitted by all 19 cities and town and the county biennially, which means every 2 years. So I come to you every 2 years with a new checklist. The checklist itself, once it's submitted, is reviewed by our Citizens Advisory Committee. They recommend on each jurisdiction's compliance and the transmittal of LSM funds, local streets and roads maintenance funds. This is how the return to source goes back to the jurisdictions. 18% for all jurisdictions and an additional 2.09% for West, Central, and Southwest County is released upon approval of the checklist every 2 years. The last checklist cycle, covering years 22 and 23, allocated almost 48 million to local jurisdictions and the county over the last 2 years. So a significant infusion of funding across the county. So I'm just going to walk through each of the items. I'm not going to get into detail. I'm just going to kind of explain what the intent is and what your local agencies are having to provide to us every 2 years. And so item 1 centers around the action plans. The action plans for routes of regional significance are developed at the RTPCs. So basically it's asking, have you participated in development of the action plans? Are you implementing your action plans? How are you implementing your action plans? What actions have you taken? Have you been circulating environmental documents that allow transparency of what the impacts of development would be on your routes of regional significance? Have new developments been analyzed against the action plans? So really there's a whole process built in, and just making sure each jurisdiction is participating in the process. Item 2 is the development mitigation program. Measure J and the GMP require that each jurisdiction participate in 2 transportation development mitigation programs. So each jurisdiction has a local program where you're applying a set of adopted fees on development. So, each type of land use, whether it's single family residential, senior housing, office, has a different rate applied to it per vehicle trip. And then you're also required to participate in a regional fee mitigation program, which is administered by the RTPCs, and you might know as the STIMP in West County, or the ECRFA in East County. Sorry, blanked on the name. And there's a whole range of what those programs look like at the different RTPCs, because they are developed by the RTPCs to meet the needs and characteristics of that area. So basically, you just have to There are cases over the years where jurisdictions may have been out of compliance or not participating in their local or regional program, and that's where this would come into play. Otherwise, we assume that everybody is participating in their program. They just have to indicate as such. Housing options. So basically, we're not asking for anything additional for local compliance here. This is really jurisdictions indicating that they are in compliance with the state, with HCD, and that and all we're asking for is a copy of the housing progress reports that they submit to HCD, so we can see what type of progress has been made at each income level and towards the RHNA goal. So this just helps inform our planning processes, and really is so we can see how the county is doing in general towards housing production. And this item also requires that policies are adopted into your local general plan and approval process that supports transit, biking, and walk access into the actual design of local developments. Item 4, traffic impact reports. Basically, the GMP requires that everyone is conducting a traffic study when a development meets a certain threshold, and that is 100 net new peak hour trips. Happy to define what that means if it's not clear, but basically we have a standard way of analyzing all projects across the county. We provide procedures, we develop our model and make that available for your consultants to do those traffic studies for projects that meet the minimum threshold. And that's just for pure transparency and sharing with your neighbors as required through the action plan process. Item 5 is that process, cooperating in multi-jurisdictional planning. That's done through the RTPCs. So are you and your staff regularly participating in the RTPC meetings? Are you participating in development of the action plans? And have you been using the model to analyze general plan amendments and new developments exceeding that threshold we just talked about? So just asking for that information from the cities. This is generally there's no issues here unless a city for some reason isn't attending RTPC meetings. We require that each jurisdiction adopt a capital improvement program, generally a 5-year, though they have the option of 7 years. And really, we just want the transportation component. This helps us in our kind of programming, forecasting, looking out to the future, seeing what transportation projects may come from your CIPs into our project list, and gives the public, a snapshot into how transportation is funded. Funding is spent countywide. Item 7, transportation systems management. This is better known as TDM these days, but it's back from 2004. So it uses that TSM language, really just making sure that jurisdictions have adopted an ordinance that supports and promotes alternatives to the single occupant vehicle. That can be a wide variety of things. And generally that's administered through the 511 CCTA program for your local jurisdictions, but each jurisdiction is required to have an ordinance. The ULL, this is the one most people associate with the GMP. This is that imaginary line that the county has adopted and is in the process of updating, and that each local jurisdiction has adopted their own or adopted the county's. And this is how we focus new development away from our important agricultural lands and reduces the need for new infrastructure by keeping development within that line. So really just asking if there have been any changes to your ULL over the past 2 years. And that's what it looks like. Item 9 is adoption of the Measure J growth management element. So we created a model GME that each jurisdiction was required to adopt in some form into their general plan. So all jurisdictions have done that. They were required to do that by 2009. What we're asking for here is for any updates that have been done as part of general plan updates over the years. Item 10, posting of signs. This is how we advertise Measure J. This is one of the only ways we can advertise Measure J. And so for any project that exceeds $250,000 in Measure J funding or Measure C, must have signage meeting our specifications. I've got the old signage there with the old logo, but we do have specifications for what it must look like. And we ask that you provide a list of the projects that are signed in your community. And we also ask that you send a picture along as part of the checklist, just so we can see what that looks like. But really important for CCTA. Item E, another really important item on the financial side is maintenance of effort. So before Measure J came about, we assumed that each jurisdiction was dedicating a certain percentage of their funding to maintenance. When Measure J came online and there's that 18% return to source, we wanted to make sure that that was not supplanting or replacing that existing funding, but was in addition to that funding. So basically, we established a baseline back in 2004 of what each jurisdiction had been spending annually on maintenance, and that became your MOE baseline. And the requirement is that you're spending at least your baseline amount each fiscal year. So the requirement is to report that amount in addition to the baseline. Item 12, our last item, is submittal of LSM annual reporting summary and audit reports. So for each fiscal year, we want to know how you've spent your LSM, which category, there's major categories, roadways, transit, trails, etc., including GMP compliance, which means funding your staff's time preparing a checklist, attending RTPC meetings, things like that. But it's very flexible in terms of how you can spend it. And then we want documentation in the audit form of any expenditures of over $10,000. So just so we have we can keep reporting the types of metrics that are actually being funded. The amount of pavement overlays, the amount of sidewalks, the length of trails being funded, the amount of EV parking spaces, things like that. So we want to be able to capture all of that, and this allows us to do that. So item 13 is anything in addition that you'd like to submit along, and we don't really expect anything there. So that is an overview of the checklist. There are no changes from last year, other than updating kind of the years and fiscal years that we're asking for. So our recommendation today is to release the new checklist covering calendar years 24 and 25. That will allocate return to source funds for fiscal years 25, 26, and 26, 27. The 25-26 amount is estimated at $23.3 million, and that will be available this fall for anyone who submits between now and then. We actively encourage and want you to help us encourage from your local jurisdictions early submittal of checklist. Last cycle, 16 of the checklists came in the last 2 months. We give folks till next June 31st or June 30th to submit. That's June 30th of 2027. So they have at least a year to submit. We don't want them all to come in next May and June. That creates just a log jam for staff to review and for the CAC to process. In addition, we ran this by the CAC 2 weeks ago. They have requested not any changes to the checklist itself, but changes to what we're asking from local jurisdictions when they come and present their checklists to the CAC. And so we don't think it's a lot. It's just what we're planning on doing is creating a template slideshow so jurisdictions know what is expected, what is going to be asked anyways from the CAC. If you've ever watched a CAC meeting where they review a checklist, they give each one about an hour. So it's a significant presentation that is expected. There's a member who asks questions about bus service. There's a member who asks questions about ADUs. There's a member who always asks questions about their cooperative multi-jurisdictional planning and how they're working with their neighbors. So because these questions are getting asked anyways, we thought it was better just to give the cities an advance, better expectation of what they should be providing in their presentation. So, more information on housing production, including statistics on ADUs and how cities are using their ADUs. When they're talking about new developments, provide a map of those developments in the PowerPoint, because we've got residents from all over the county looking at, say, City of Orinda's presentation. They don't know where, the village is versus downtown. Provide before and after impacts of projects. So when you're talking about a project, if it's been implemented and you know its impact on traffic or on safety, provide a little bit of information there. And then provide safety statistics if you have them, information on collisions year over year and any positive impacts there. So these are things that are being asked. We're just going to recommend that cities include them in their presentations. So that's our ask today, is to issue the new checklist and be able to kind of provide more information to the CAC in the presentations of the checklist. So I'd certainly be willing to take any questions, especially on the checklist requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for the presentation. This has been in effect for quite some time, and so I was kind of curious if there's any of the checklist items that maybe have been problematic with getting done or that consistently create a delay. I mean, without naming any names, has every jurisdiction been getting this done? I mean, we should be motivated by the return to source funding and other things, but has it been a problem in the past? Seems like this is fairly routine and fairly, it's been in progress for a while and should be kind of routine in nature.
Yes, that's how I try and market it to the cities. One, in that it should be something they want to do, or that they're motivated to do because of the return to source funds. And they come in as soon as you submit the checklist. The longer you wait, the longer we sit on the money. And it is fairly routine. There are certain sections that do require a bit of work to update, especially question 1, progress on the action plans. But, really the only time we have issues is when there's new staff and when there's been turnover at the jurisdictions. And we do make ourselves available. I will walk new staff through the checklist process. I've gone and I'd go do presentations at the RTPCs so I can talk them through it, make myself available. So yeah, we try and make it as easy as possible, but also we want to make it something that's valuable as well. Yeah, I think on both sides, it's important, one, to receive those local funds, but also to be transparent about what's going on. And CCTA is happy to provide the support to make sure that jurisdictions can provide all that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Meadows?
Thank you, Matt. Do you know the range of funding from the low to the high between the jurisdictions?
Yeah, so on an annual basis, a smaller city like Clayton gets about $450,000. And a larger jurisdiction like Concord gets about $2 million per year. Those are rough estimations, and it's based on a formula combining population and roadway miles.
Thank you, Matt.
So as your population and roadways grow, that share changes across the county, very slightly, but yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Commissioner Carlson?
Thanks, Matt. I'm just curious, and I probably should have asked this years ago, but how do we determine the percentage on the MOE? And is there any flexibility on that in the sense of based on the jurisdiction's priority needs, desires, whatever it might be going forward?
So, I mean, there's the requirement is meeting that that MOE, that minimum threshold each fiscal year. There have been a couple times where a jurisdiction has missed it slightly one fiscal year, but spent much more the next fiscal year, and we were okay with that. We daylighted that to the Citizens Advisory Committee, and they were okay with that. But generally, we want to see them meet it each fiscal year. We do provide an alternate MOE, so there is an alternate MOE based on some historical factors. So if it is lower than the kind of the standard MOE, the jurisdiction can petition to use the alternate MOE. We get that request on occasion, but very rarely. So there are some provisions in place, but in general, the expectation is to meet that baseline each year.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have a question? No. So I do. Thanks again for your presentation. So, there's already these 13 elements that you've gone through that are required, assuming we approve this checklist. So where do these recommendations, these recommended additions from the CAC come from? I mean, where do they get added in as element 14? Do we just say, hey, it would be nice, but don't have to do it?
Actually, they technically aren't part of the recommendation. They were just something we wanted to daylight to you, that the CAC wanted as part of our guidance. It's really between myself and the cities when I'm advising them on what to present to the CAC. Is just providing a template that asks for a little more information.
Okay, so this
So,
is
yeah,
more along the line, so this is going to be not
Not
added
part of the
in
checklist
as
itself.
part of the
yes.
checklist, but when they give their presentation, you would encourage them to have this information available to share with the CAC. Okay, got
Exactly.
it. Okay, thank you. So I don't see anybody else's green light on, so do we have any public comment? Doesn't look like any in person. How about online?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to the committee. And again, staff is seeking a motion approving the checklist for distribution to local jurisdictions. So is there a motion to that effect?
I move approval of the GMP compliance checklist.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so a motion by Commissioner Meadows, a second by Commissioner Armstrong. If you would please call the vote.
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Chair Obringer?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. So 1 down and 3 to go, right? Okay, so All right, so our next item that we have today that we're going to be covering, we're going to be talking about the countywide Vision Zero safety policy and implementation guide, and seeking approval of a resolution adopting proposed updates to the plan. And if you would please introduce yourself and take it away.
Yep, thank you, Chair Obringer. Good afternoon, committee members as well. Colin Clark, CCTA, Senior Planner. Flipping the screens. Cool. Thanks. Okay, so this item is proposed to update and amend the existing countywide comprehensive transportation safety action plan. So a little bit of background. In September of 2021, the policy resolution, the countywide Vision Zero resolution 21-40-G was adopted by the board to include the policy and implementation guide for local agencies. And then in September of 22, there were policy revisions and clarification about the Vision Zero action plan contents to be eligible and competitive for federal funding and different funding sources. And then in December of 24, the board adopted the most recent second revision of the policy resolution for countywide Vision Zero. And that included the countywide transportation safety action plan in addition to the guide. And now before you today is just a quick update on Safe Streets and Roads for All SS4A grants. So the awards thus far to CCTA include FY22, which was the implementation grant, which is ongoing. And FY24 was the planning and demonstration grant. And then FY25 is also a planning and demonstration grant that was awarded by USDOT and FHWA. And so the item before you today on this next slide is meant to summarize the different things that CCTA can do in order to become eligible for FY26 SS4A implementation funding. And so the slide here just shows how, you know, the FY25, there's this planning and demonstration grant award that's meant to focus on addressing emergency response, connected vehicles, and automated vehicles. And then the proposal is to, in FY26, compete for a implementation grant award that's related to the planning and demonstration that might include testing at Gomentum Station, for example. And so on this next slide, it shows not just emergency response, but streamlining and improving the emergency response countywide so that fatal and severe injuries in consistency with the policy can be reduced or minimized. So the planning and demonstration grant for FY25 would address these topics, and then the plan is proposed for amendment to address these items to be eligible for this implementation grant. So addressing things like work zones, approach speed conditions, and getting that information to drivers and their vehicles in real time, post-crash care, in terms of signal priority and preemption for emergency response vehicles, faster transportation to trauma centers for immediate care, and real-time coordination in terms of the data across dispatch and traffic operations and the response in the field. And so the final slide is just the staff recommendation. The request before you today is that the board approve the resolution 21-40-G revision 3. So this will be the first one since December 24, and this would adopt the proposed updates and language that's included in this packet today to the plan, and authorize the executive director to make non-substantive changes as needed. And then we would take this item to the CBPAC May 18th after the board meeting to seek concurrence. So happy to answer any questions and comments.
Thank you for your presentation, Colin. Are there any questions about this presentation? I don't have any either. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, any members of the public?
No public comment.
Okay, so we're going to close the public comment on this and bring it back to the committee. Is there a motion for approval of a resolution adopting the proposed updates that Colin has just gone over to the plan?
Move to approve.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Xavier. Is there a second? Oh, Commissioner Armstrong, I see the green
I'll
light.
second.
Okay, great. All right, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the vote.
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Chair Obringer? And motion passes unanimously.
Yes, my green light went off. Thank you. All right, I guess too many of us were talking at once, right? Isn't it like a limit of 3? Okay, the next item we have, so this is going to be, we're going to be talking about Measure J funding for sub-regional Central County Safe Transportation for Children, Program 21A for a summer youth program. And we're going to be hearing from Danielle on this one.
Right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Obringer. Danielle Elkins, Deputy Executive Director for Planning Programs and Policy. This item is coming to us because there is a funding request from TransPAC to provide Measure J 21A funding to support summer youth programs this summer. But I want to share the entire context and start to explain what our plan is going forward for student programming as well within the county. So I wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of start to share a little bit of what we're working on. So how did we get here? We have been trying to develop a kind of more sustainable student program that kind of goes across transit, biking and walking, as well as school busing within the county. And about a year ago, we were having conversations about how do we start to use different types of funding to fund our student programs. How do we make sure that we're maximizing how we use TFCA funds? What are the restrictions of TFCA funds, which there are a lot? And so how do we kind of solve this problem going forward? In September, Tim went to the County Connection Board and presented our plan for this coming summer of where we wanted to combine our current Pass to Class program, which is funded by TFCA, with this kind of the continuation of the Youth Ride Free program that happened last summer that the transit operators did. So in October, we went to our transit general manager meeting and we presented this county coordination presentation, got buy-in from the operators, and then in November, it went to TransPAC for approval of funding. So what TransPAC approved was that they were going to use line 21A funds, which is the student program of Measure J, in the amount not to exceed of $41,000. So all the rides that were completed during the June and July period of the Youth Ride Free would be reimbursed up to $41,000 at $1 a ride. In December, this similar proposal went to SWAT because they are also in the County Connection area. They approved already allocated Measure J17, which is TDM funds, up to $5,933. And this was based on ridership estimates from County Connection. And then in December, we met with our transit general managers again to talk about how we were going to be developing a marketing plan, and also to make sure that the other two operators were on board with the summer program. At our March general manager meeting, we checked back in. Westcat and Tri-Delta were still working on their funding at that point. Since then, they have each allocated their own funds. Westcat is using LC Top. Tri-Delta received funds from county commissioners. And so now everybody kind of came together finally with all their pieces of funding. And at our April transit general manager meeting, which is now we're in May, so about a month ago, we went with all the general managers and discussed what the branding was going to be, the marketing and launch, and really kind of what I'm going to be sharing with you, which is our strategy for survey deployment so that we can answer the questions that we need to determine what funding is available for these programs. So this is ultimately the language that passed both TransPAC and SWAT that are executing what we are going to be doing this summer. So it's a combination of our existing Pass to Class program, which operates from August and September, combined with the 2-month summer program for June and July to provide to provide free rides for youth ages 6 to 18. So the reason that we are in this position, and I kind of feel that we're in this position every single year and trying to have this conversation, is that right now the way that we fund student programs is very fragmented and very different based on each of our subregions. So on the screen, you can see these are the various programs that currently exist for student programs. We have in West County 31-day bus passes that kids that are applying for these bus passes and meet the requirements can get either a Westcat or an AC Transit bus pass. They're also, as part of our OBAG 3 project, we have Contra Costa Health is delivering and trying to scale up to do walk and roll within West County. So just in those two programs, we're combining Measure J17, Measure J21A, TFCA, and OBAG 3 to deliver these programs. I'm gonna jump to South right now because they're also SWAT is using these in a very unique way. SWAT has allocated all of their Measure J21 funds to their school bus programs. So Traffics and La Miranda School Bus are fully supported by 21. They also use additional TFCA funds to support those school programs. And then they also use Measure J17 and OBAG 3 to support the Street Smarts program in San Ramon, as well as they have a unique program where they do this really cool video competition every year called Be Real. So again, four funding sources, all to combine to create their programs. In Central, we have been using TFCA funds to continue to develop the walk and roll program, and each year adding more and more schools, and it's become a really successful program. It's become so successful that now our staff are being contacted by the parents in the SWAT area, particularly in La Miranda, begging for walk and roll to come there. So now we are going to be, we just went to SWAT last week and got approval from the board to be adding walk and roll to one school in Orinda, one school in Moraga, and one school in Lafayette in the next school period, and an application to TFCA. So as you can see, it starts to we're jumping around now. So Central also has been participating in Bike Family Fest. That's been a really successful event. I'll share a little bit more about that later. But there's also been a built-up balance under 21A. So we have financial means to be expanding and doing additional programs, which is where this request is coming from. But we're also supporting Street Smarts as well in Central. And then in East County, there's no 21 funding for East County. And this is because of a decision that was made during the Measure J TAP process, and it was intentional that that money was supporting the expansion of BART and Highway 4. So, but they are receiving the benefit of OBAG 3 countywide program, as well as our Street Smarts program out of Measure J17. So just explaining what we currently have, I wanted you guys to see just how complicated our current system and what we are working with. We are very, I think, unfortunately held back by the artificial boundaries of our RTPCs in this type of program. This is just one example that we're doing with this. So as I am trying to look at what a future TAP might be, or how do we improve these programs, I'm trying to understand what are the needs of every single subregion? What are we getting requests for in each of these subregions? And how do we make sure that whatever programs we are putting in are meeting the needs of the kids across the entire county, but also understanding the unique needs of each of the subregions. So the reason why we were trying to develop this pilot this summer was to understand how do we create kind of more uniform access across the subregions, but also address the kids that are traveling, and we know they are traveling across the subregions as well. So the only program that we have right now that is countywide across all the subregions and has one consistent funding is the Pass to Class program. It's funded by TFCA. It is meeting cost effectiveness by being a countywide program. And that is what makes things very complicated. So right now, we're trying to use this to build those bus habits, getting the kids getting used to showing a pass and getting on the bus and understanding what it means to ride the bus. But because we're using TFCA funds, that means that we have to understand the days of the week that the kids are expected that they're going to ride the bus, the length of the car trip that was eliminated by that bus ride, how the student would have gotten to school if they were not riding the bus. And so there's a very complicated intake process where we, in order to get a pass in the Pass to Class program, the parent has to fill out the application and answer all those questions. And then in November, following the conclusion of the program, we go back to the same parents and we say, everything you told us in the beginning about what behaviors you were going to do and the trips you were going to replace, did that actually come to fruition? Did your child continue to use the bus after the conclusion of the program? And all of that data together, which in the beginning, you've got over 1,000 respondents. In the end, we get around 700 respondents. All of that data is then what helps us to maintain our TFCA funding. So when you start to look at the data that we are getting back from both Pass to Class and Youth Ride Free, we're seeing trends that are helping us to kind of inform a future program. In this one, we're looking at the Pass to Class survey recipients, and we get really good response rates. Those that are participating, we have really high response rates from County Connection area. We would love to see, obviously, more surveys, which is why we're really going to be doubling down on it this year. Just to kind of explain for this year how we are combining all these different funding sources. So again, this request, this resolution is just for the top one, which is allocating 21A funds to reimburse County Connection on their rides within the TransPac area alone. The SWAT, because those funds are already allocated, will go directly to the city of San Ramon for processing. Tri-Delta received money directly from the county, so they will be handling that themselves, and WestCat is using their LC Top funds. And then additionally, TFCA will be continuing to cover all of the Pass to Class for all of the operators in this season. So some additional data that we're seeing. We had surveys from the Youth Ride Free program from County Connection. On the right side, we have Youth Ride Free question we asked of Pass to Class participants on the left side. It's probably really hard to see the text from where you are. So the question is, what are the biggest benefits to these programs? So on the right side for Youth Ride Free, the top response was it reduced the need for a parent to drive their child. So it was more about independence. The second one is increased independence for my child, and the third one was cost savings. Keep in mind that on the Youth Ride Free, there were less than 100 survey responses. On the left side, we were working with 700 to 1,200 responses. So on the left side, when you see across the entire county, the number one thing that parents were looking for in the student program was cost savings. But then again, the second one was increased independence, and third was reduced need for me to drive. So what we're hearing over and over again on these surveys is the most important thing that parents are looking for is giving their child more independence to travel without them and them not having to drive them everywhere, and also for them to save money. And we hear again and again that the biggest barrier to a lot of families is paying for this transportation cost. So the other interesting thing that is different across the county is who is using these programs and what age groups. So you can see that there's higher ridership in middle school for County Connection, but there's higher ridership in high school for Tri-Delta, AC Transit, and WestCat. So we do have a difference in what demographic age groups are being covered by which programs, and we're going to keep tracking that. And then the one thing that really was flagged to us is we were asking within the Pass to Class participants, how many of them were aware and used the Youth Ride Free program last summer, which was the June and July program. And we found that overall, we had 50% that didn't even know that Youth Ride Free was happening, and a higher percentage, unfortunately, in the County Connection area that didn't participate in the Youth Ride Free program. And so what we really wanted to ramp up is knowledge between the participants of both programs about either program. How do we make sure that there is a better connection to our existing programs and that all students know about what is available to them? Another really interesting point that may play into why and who was using Youth Ride Free versus Pass to Class is that you can see in East County, West County, you have a much higher percentage of participants in Pass to Class that have income that are below the poverty line, whereas in County Connection, you had a more affluent user base. So we are planning this summer to stick with the similar branding. We're looking at the Youth Ride Free kind of marketing. It's a very straightforward name. It says exactly what it is. We are expanding kind of the colors so that there is more continuity across all of the operators. And then we're using these existing assets and kind of marketing activities as well so that we can track participation in the program, engagement with the marketing, and engagement with our survey. So we're really focused, again, on working with our transit operators as our partners to get the word out and making sure that everyone knows that these programs are accessible to all children. We're going to do a lot of direct outreach as well and build off all of our other outreach efforts that we're working on currently at CCTA. And then we're going to also amp up our earned media and digital advertising to make sure that word is going out about all of these programs and the kids know what's available, and hopefully we'll continue to increase ridership. So the other thing that we're really trying to push is this connection to what the needs are. So this is, the messaging is about giving your kid more independence, reducing your drop-offs, giving safe, reliable transportation to your children, and also connecting, like, this is your pass to summer, that we can do some play on words to then better connect it into our pass to class. So we're going to be developing graphics, video assets, partner emails, newsletter blurbs, blasting that across the county. I mentioned social digital advertising, prints to different locations, direct outreach, and we're also going to be amping up how, when you learn a little bit more about travel training from Halima, we're going to do some plans for the future on how do we also teach children how to ride transit. I'm really excited that at our Bike Family Fest in the fall, County Connection is planning on bringing a bus so that kids can practice riding and boarding the bus. And then we'll be working on, operator-specific initiatives as well. So really, we've been focused on the survey questions and making sure that we're getting all of the data that we need to inform our future programs, answering these questions about days of the week that folks are planning to ride the bus, the length of car trips that might have been eliminated, how they would have gotten otherwise, and really leaning in on this mode shift questions that hopefully will answer what potential funding sources could be available for future programs. We're building off of the Pass to Class survey. We are integrating it so that if people are not taking the survey multiple times, if they're doing the Pass to Class sign up versus filling out the survey during the general period. And we'll also do QR code tracking so that we know where we're getting the most leverage when we're posting of who is sending the most people to our survey and seeing what is working and resonating with parents the most. So with this, I hope to continue to learn more about what potential funding sources could fund this in the future, what a future student transportation program looks like in a future TEP. But really, the surveys are the most essential part for us to understand the need and to answer the questions that we have and are getting from our other funders. So in my research, I wanted to share a little bit of what I'm seeing in talking to the school districts, to parents, to folks that are overseeing programs right now in the county. Our biggest challenge is that, like you saw in the beginning, a lot of our programs are sub-regional. And unfortunately, a lot of our children are not traveling sub-regionally. We have a significant population of children right now who are going to school in one subregion and are living in another subregion. So the challenge becomes, even if we provide certain school routes for free or certain times of year, it's not necessarily giving the child what they need. Because if only part of their trip is covered and the other part is not, what we're finding is that those that are facing, homelessness, or those that are in foster youth, which traditionally are the ones that end up being in different areas from their school district, they're facing significant absenteeism. So this has a real impact on kids potentially not going to school. So as I'm looking at kind of solving for the most complicated use case within student transportation, I'm looking at this group that is newcomer refugees, homeless population, foster youth, and those that are juvenile justice involved. And we think that if we can solve for the most complicated use cases, then hopefully that works for all children across the county. So just thinking about, this is one use case that I've heard this kind of story from the school district quite a bit. If you have an individual who's living right now in a foster home in East County, but is still going to their home school in the Mount Diablo School District in Central, they potentially have to pay 2 different fares and transfer just to get to school. And for most kids, they, one, either can't afford the 2 different fares. Even if maybe there's a free route on part of it, they can't afford the other one. And there's such a long commute that they're just not going to school. And that's our unfortunate reality right now. But we are seeing really great success, and we want to keep building on that success to hopefully solve some of these issues in other areas of the county. Walk and roll participation has been one area of great success that has been happening in the central area that we hope we can keep expanding. And I think given the interest we're starting to see in the other subregions as parents are finding out about this program, is one kind of shining light for us of something that is working really well. And every year we add more schools, and every year you see ridership go up with the children biking and walking to school. And we're also now starting to see that the kids that started out early in the walk and roll program in elementary, now that they're getting to middle school, they're still biking. So this is, when we talk about building habits early, by teaching the kids how to safely bike as an elementary school student, it's showing that they are continuing to safely bike into middle school. And we got the question at SWAT of, how many of these kids are now riding e-bikes versus regular bikes, and most of them are on regular bikes. The ones that are learning the good behaviors are the ones that are on regular bikes and are continuing to show that good behavior. So we want to keep growing off of this. So as I start to kind of put together a proposal, and we're trying to, as we're trying to expand walk and roll, we're trying to get to the point where all the schools in Transpac have walk and roll, that we are scaling up every single year and getting SWAT involved, that now that we have trained SWAT and county health, that West County will start to be involved in walk and roll as well, and we'll start rolling out schools shortly. So that hopefully as we get some maybe OBAG 4 funding as a countywide proposal, that we can get funding and we can roll out walk and roll across the entire county. And one other program that I mentioned that's been really successful is our Bike Family Fest. The next one's happening in the fall in Pleasant Hill. We've had kind of continued participation growing exponentially over the last couple of years. It's probably hard for you guys to see this text, so the purple is all participants and the orange is children. The reason there's no children in the first years is because we weren't tracking them, not because they didn't come. There was significant children participation. But we're trying to use it also as a way to connect in with our other programs. We're working on some partnerships to figure out, can we get kids with accessibility needs the opportunity to get fitted to accessible bikes during Bike Family Fest? And how can we potentially grow Bike Family Fest to be something that maybe rotates around the county to different locations and teaches parents how to help their kids ride safely to school? And just in general, that we're seeing a lot of great benefits from the Pass to Class program. We're seeing that if you are given a Pass to Class early in this school year, you learn that behavior, you continue to ride transit for the rest of the school year. Similarly, kids that are biking on the walk and roll days, usually all the other school days, they are still continuing to ride. So again, it's, even though maybe there's only an incentive on one day a week, it's building good habits. We're seeing it's increasing attendance, it's reducing tardiness, it's increasing public health benefits. And the parents are saying that it's a great financial help to them and also feeling more connected to their community. So seeing a lot of really positive benefits to these programs, and we're hoping that by continuing to understand the needs of our community and the data, that we can build a student program that addresses all of our needs and really leans into the things that are working for us, and also brings more parity across the subregion so that we can have some more consistent countywide programs that benefit everyone. I think that's it. So the request is just for,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead and continue. The request is what?
for the resolution is to request the approval of Program 21A funding from Transpac in the amount of $41,000 just for this summer program.
And so thank you very much for your presentation. And so do I understand correctly then, this will be seen again at Transpac on Monday, and that is where the approval of the funding would take place? Or are you suggesting that we do that here?
The approval of funding has already been done, was done in November at Transpac. So this is just the final, now CCTA is allowed to issue that allocation and reimburse County Connection for their rides for June and July. And what will go to the Transpac board next week is, this is kind of similar what the plan is for the summer in the rollout of marketing and surveys, as well as what we're thinking about for the future.
Got it. Thank you. So before we do any of that, are there any questions about what was presented? Yes?
No, you
Commissioner
know what,
Carlson.
I'll save it till after.
Okay, okay, okay. Anybody else? Okay. I did have a question, maybe it is for you, Commissioner Carlson. No, because, so you were serving on, you know, a very important regional body, the Bay Area Air Quality District Board, and I know that they want a lot of data to be collected. And so I know that Danielle has outlined all of this data that is being collected, and so the question is it the right data? So that we can get some of that money that has been elusive.
She's poking the bear. You know, some of what's required at the Air District for the TFCA funding is part of legislation as well as district policy. And that's why I'm just really appreciative of Danielle, and because I think everybody knows how important I think transit for youth is, and free ride for transit especially. But this was one of the challenges. Is under the TFCA funding, we have to gather data. And so there's no getting around it. And that's why I'm an advocate for, let's find other funding streams. The fact that we're doing this within the RTPCs as well as the multiple transit agencies makes it really challenging to bring it all together into one pot to be able to accomplish the goal. And so to kind of consolidate this as a CCTA program with a centralized funding stream would be really ideal, I think, as opposed to how we're picking out of different baskets and we're facing those challenges. And that's all I really wanted to say. But again, what we're facing when it comes to using TFCA 40 funds is we're having to meet state mandates requiring data and being able to track, you know, impacts to the travel in the community.
Well, thank you. So I think that was a way of saying yes, that you are gathering all the right data and you're putting systems in place to do that.
Yeah, our challenge continues to be that the current format for Youth Ride Free of just letting kids get on the bus
Right.
in itself does not collect that data. So the test is, can we collect enough in surveys that's proportional to the number of rides so that it's statistically usable by the Air District? Can we accomplish that? So this summer is the test of, can we accomplish that? But the outstanding issue continues to be that the ridership data on its own is not enough for us to receive TSCA funding. It's also not enough for us to receive MTC funding through OBAG 4. If you're seeking reimbursement for rides on transit from MTC, it has to be using a Clipper card. And so our challenge continues to be that I know the letting kids on the bus seems like a really great idea, but we are going to continue to have this funding challenge year over year if we are pushing for that solution. Whereas if we start to think more broadly about the general needs of our student population, having someone tap a Clipper card isn't necessarily the barrier that we're seeing the kids having the biggest issue with. It's really about cost and having to move across multiple operators. So if we give the kids a Clipper card, we're teaching them the behavior of being able to ride the bus that they're going to continue to use into adulthood. We're teaching them good behavior and the value of transit, that it's worth paying for. But we're also, hopefully in the back end, helping them to understand that we will take care of who the operator is. They shouldn't have to worry about who the operator is. They should be able to tap the card, and we take care of who the operator is on the back end to reimburse them. And if we do it that way, then we are hopefully solving their actual problem and need.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Meadows.
Is there a reason we're not doing that?
There has not been support for that or funding for that. So what I'm testing and proposing is that we start to use 21A funds to do a pilot of just that, of how can we've already identified the essentially 2,000 kids in the Mount Diablo Unified School District that are the most in need for a program of this kind. We've already spoken with the social workers. I've spoken to MTC. I'm working out the details of how do we fully administer a program that is across multiple providers where we are the owner administrator. And the hard part is making sure that all the transit operators agree to participate in that, and that we can agree that going forward, we're going to start to get away from looking at the boarding for free and instead looking at providing trips for free.
So if they want the funding, they should get on board with doing it the right way, right? Transit operatorship. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the one member of the public is gone in person. Is there anyone else online who would like to make a public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. So we will bring it back to the body. I'm sorry I forced you into your comment, but if
No,
you have
no, no.
additional comments.
No, it just, again, I really support or agree with riding transit and finding a way to make it happen. And again, it would be nice if we could track usage, however we can do that, Clipper card, tap on. But again, we also want to know miles traveled. There's just so many different things that play into it that really make it challenging. And that's why I'm really grateful for Danielle's work on all of this. And with that, I want to move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Commissioner Carlson, a second by Commissioner Xavier, and I too, before we vote, I just want to thank you, Danielle, because I've gotten this twice already today, so maybe I'll be an expert after I hear it the third time at Transpec. But the point is that this is the first time that I've really seen some deep dive, comprehensive analysis, and looking across the county, and really I appreciate all of your work, because I didn't know until today that East County doesn't have, funding for, and that's the population where, there's the most kids, because that's the growing part of our county, as we know. So I really appreciate the analysis and trying to take this holistic approach. So we haven't figured it out yet, but I feel like we're on a good trajectory. Yes, Tim?
Well, and I just want to add, this is what a performance data-driven process looks like. Like, this is what we should be doing in the future. Like, really looking at the data, really following the data, and really understanding how to actually determine where the needs are and how we actually get the highest return on investment for those needs, right? And I think this is a really good example, and I applaud Danielle and team on that, because this is the direction we need to go on all of these programs, right? As we think about the future, and also think about a future expenditure plan.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other comments, we have a motion and a second. If you would please call the vote.
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Chair Obringer?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, our last presentation today we have from Halima is going to be presenting on Ride Together, Countywide Mobility Program. So this is an update, informational only. So there's not going to be a staff recommendation. It's providing information to the committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about our mobility program that we are developing. It's called Ride Together, and we are hoping that this is, it falls in the category of travel training, but we really want to orient it towards plain language that people can resonate with. So we're going to call it Ride Together, and a mobility initiative externally. Where's the next slide? There we go. And so one of the reasons why we're working on developing this program is because accessible infrastructure alone is not enough. There's a lot of needs that our community members have. We've invested a lot in those infrastructures, but when they have concerns about fears about using transportation or lack of familiarity, it can create barriers. We also think about language and cultural barriers that people might experience, or even fear of losing existing services like paratransit. And so what we want to build is confidence through practical skills, and really create that space for people to get familiar with how transportation works and build long-term independence through these trainings. This program design has been put together with a lot of consultation from stakeholders across the county. We were intentional in making sure that we could engage with all the key groups involved and also learn from programs that have been done in the county in the past. And so in February, when we had our Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan workshop, we did a discussion with stakeholders to understand how the program in WCTAC and County Connections program went in previous years, what we could learn from that, and also feedback for the future iteration of a county-wide initiative. We presented this to the general managers at their meeting, also to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and then we've been having individual meetings with potential partners. And then we've been interviewing other Bay Area programs that do this type of service in Marin, Oakland, Alameda, Berkeley, and learning about how they run it, what we can take from those programs, and understanding more about their structure. And then we've been also consulting with Sarah Birdwell and Naomi Armenta to inform the program design. And lastly, I've enrolled in a nationally recognized training program with Easter Seals, where I'm completing a 60-hour course on becoming a certified travel trainer. And that will help us inform, what kind of training we want to provide for our trainers in this program and really right size and adjust. This program is really intended to serve a broad number of audiences, but we want to start with what our minimum viable product is, what can we start, and then we can build as we go. So that focus right now is on older adults and people with disabilities, as well as the caregivers and family members who support those individuals with travel. Those are individuals who could accompany folks on the trip or on the skills session, or it could be the caregivers are kind of a referral pathway for bringing people into this program. Future phases will include youth and transitional aged individuals, equity priority communities, and also multi-jurisdiction travelers. So we're building the program in a way that it can be scaled, and this is really the foundation to get the ball rolling. We'll deliver service through a flexible model. We know there's multiple levels of learning, and so we want to start with level 1, which is just informational presentations about what the program is. We've learned that outreach and trust is going to be a huge part of making this program successful, right? If we're asking someone to join a group trip and go somewhere, they have to feel comfortable going to the person who's going to be leading that trip. And so we'll do a lot of high level, what is this program about? What will you gain from it type of sessions? And those will be very short, 20 to 30 minutes. And then we'll also do sessions that are actually focused on building core skills, like how to read a bus schedule, what to do if you miss your transfer point, what accessibility features exist on the bus. I was at the Richmond Senior Town Hall last week, and one of the seniors was telling me that they have a bus stop in front of their house, but they don't use it because they have a walker. And I told them that, did you know the bus could actually open up a ramp for you and you can actually get on with your walker? And they had no idea. And I explained to them how it works and how simple it was. And they said, well, this has changed my mind and I'm going to give it a try. And that's really what we're trying to do with this program, is to give people the information and the skills that they need to feel comfortable giving it a try and seeing if this is something that could work for them. The second level of service that we would provide are group trips. So this is something that WCTAC was previously providing in 2024. And interestingly, in the Richmond Town Hall, a lot of the seniors came to me and said, are you doing the group trips again? And I just thought it was incredible that they still remembered those experiences from many years ago, and that shows, how much people appreciated those spaces. These are small trips that allow people to go out on outings and actually use their Clipper card and learn how to do a transfer and learn how to ride the bus. But it's also an opportunity for peer learning and social connection. And some trips that people took in the past included to the ferry building or something like the museum. And so it could be also an experience for people to just get that social connection. And the last level of service is one-on-one intensive service. And so this is a personal coaching for those who have higher needs. This is something that we would roll out in a later phase. It does require a lot more training and a lot more specialized people in our pool of trainers. And then again, as I mentioned, outreach is a huge part of how this type of service is delivered. So we will spend a lot of time building out that pipeline. And, community presentations at senior centers, at faith organizations, libraries, housing providers. Those will be one way for us to start sharing when the program is active, how people can get involved and join. Also through trusted messengers, peer ambassadors, case managers, print and digital materials, including multilingual materials. And then peer word of mouth, so those who go through the program, encouraging them to share this with their friends. Our goal is also to think about, what does the incentive structure for this look like, and we're looking into providing people with preloaded Clipper cards as an incentive to participate. It also allows us then to track how they use that Clipper card, if they use it, if it's been activated, and that helps us to kind of track the outcomes. So the ultimate goal is that somebody goes through this service and then feels comfortable using fixed route transit some of the time or all the time for their trips. And then to kind of explain how this would work for the user experience. The idea is someone that would become aware of the program through these avenues that I just shared, and then we would have them sign up some type of intake process where they'll share with us their goal, what they're trying to learn. They might say, I have a recurring medical appointment and that's my goal of what I want to figure out how to do with this program. Share with us their location. If they already know that they're ready for a group trip, they might request that off the bat, or they may say, I have no idea what level of service is good for me. This is just what my goal is. And any access and language needs. And then we can use that to figure out a way to match them and recommend them to the right session that would make sense for them. And there's two ways that we will handle scheduling sessions. One is by just having open drop-in pre-scheduled sessions that anyone can come to, right? These could be 4 sessions across the year at a library that are going to talk about how to use your Clipper card or how to use Google Maps for trip planning. Those could be walk-in, and this is something that some city programs like Alameda do, where you can just walk in and they have those. In Alameda, every month they do on the first Friday a Transit 101 workshop, and they have about 10 people that come every month. So we would have options like that, and then we would have the demand pool option where we wait for enough people to request a specific topic or from a specific area, and then we can schedule around those individuals and tailor the session a little bit more to what their goals are and what their needs are. And also for the feedback loop, we really want to understand what was the impact of the program and how, again, it changed their travel patterns or didn't. And so we would also do a 30-day and a 90-day check-in with participants to ask them if they want more sessions or if they feel like the sessions they experienced were sufficient to get the ball rolling. We'd also be building out a curriculum to identify some of the skills and lessons we would want to be teaching through this program. Right now we have 12 modules, and when we roll out in September, we would start with a few, ideally have maybe 8 to 9 kind of sessions that we've built out, and we can add more as we go or add more based on feedback or specific requests that we're getting. But these sessions would be fairly simple, 60 to 90 minutes in person or online, depending on the nature of the session, explaining some of these core skills around using fixed route service and navigating. We're also thinking about having an online repository of resources. There's a lot of videos that already exist on how to use Clipper Card or how to use Transit app. And so we would put together a learning library where people can access videos for free online. And this is another avenue for someone to be able to get the information they're looking for. And then we would deliver the service through a hub and spokes model where CCTA would be the hub. We would create a curriculum. We would establish some type of training model for how people can become trained to deliver the service, figure out what the data tracking and the information that we need to gather looks like on our end, language access support, and countywide coordination. And the spokes would be our community partners that would deliver the service through becoming trained with our program, and then leading sessions at senior centers and libraries and other community spaces. Partners can also help promote the program, so not every partner will need to become a trainer. And some partners could also just say, you know, we have a space, but we don't have any staffing right now, but you can come in and use the space for a session. So a lot of different ways to partner. And we've sent out a partner interest form to all the folks who have been engaged with us throughout this process, and have received, I think, a little over 10 interested parties right now who want to work with us in various capacities. I should also say some of the organizations have noted that they're able to provide their own funding or some type of staff time as an in-kind contribution. So that also allows us to maximize our resources in delivering this program. So what we're building first, you know, we're starting with building out a core curriculum. This includes scripts for trainers, facilitation guides, printable materials for participants, trainer toolkits. So how do we onboard a trainer into this program? If we're thinking about a senior center staff who has very limited time, we need to make it as easy as possible for someone to come in and have what they need to deliver a session. And we're also working on identifying a certification process for our model that would be right size for the capacity of our partners. So I'm going through the 60-hour training, which is the very high-end long version of the certification process, and from that we'll pare down what makes sense for our specific context. And we also expect that for this first level of service, which is the classroom style workshop sessions, we won't need as much training and certification, whereas if somebody were to lead a group training and a group outing, that would require more training. And then we also are working on identifying an intake and operations process. You know, how do we match participants to the right sessions? How do we follow up with them, and trying to really reduce the administrative cost and labor by creating workflows on the back end that will help streamline the process. And lastly, having a digital foundation where we can house the information for this program, have the online resource library. But we, you know, across all this, we want to keep it plain language, and not over-engineer this, and keep it as low-tech friendly as possible. Our timeline for rollout is, you know, we're wanting to launch our minimum viable product by September. This includes having the online library ready and launching the skills workshops, starting with a focus on older adults and people with disabilities. And then next year, we would like to expand to add group outings, maybe introduce a peer trainer model where people with lived experience can support and be trainers. Grow the online library. We can potentially also add additional demographics into the program. If we were ready at that point, we could also add youth as a specific focus. And then the following year from the original launch, we'll look to see what the scale for this program can look like as we build it and as we get feedback. And so wanted to pause here for any questions or feedback, and also to hear from all of you, you know, if you feel this is something that could be relevant to your community, if there are certain ideas or recommendations that you have on partnerships that we should be thinking about in the early phase as we design this project.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So those are the 4 questions that you have for us on the left.
These are some general questions I've been asking partner organizations, and certainly ones that if you have any responses to, I would love to hear.
Okay, great, thank you. So does anyone have any questions about the presentation or responses? Okay.
Quite a few years ago, I was very involved in travel training with WICTEC in the San Pablo Senior Center. And those events, we had a lot of seniors going. We went all over. We'd take the bus and BART, go to Oakland, go to lunch, whatever. We'd go to San Francisco. We just went everywhere. But I haven't followed lately to see if it's still of as much interest to the seniors as it was back then. Whether it's of more interest or how it's going. But it was great.
Yeah, I've been hearing mixed numbers from programs in other parts of the Bay Area. When I ask them, there are some that are saying we have 20 people every month that are coming and we're consistently giving service, and some that said, well, only 2 people requested this in the whole year. So I think it will depend largely on how much we can invest in our outreach, and also how we adjust the program as we get feedback and really tailor it to what people are looking for. There's some outreach that we've been doing, just going to senior centers and events and talking to people about this concept and trying to get early interest in signups. And there have been a number of people who have said, like, I don't want to give up driving. I love driving. This is it for me. But we're hoping that through getting their peers to join, they might feel an interest to come, and at the very least for a social activity.
And I was just wondering, because I was noticing, because I have to take BART now more than I used to go to Oakland for my day job. And so I was noticing as I've been waiting at the Concord BART station, that many of our Afghan families, it looks like they're taking the bus, because I'm on the BART platform at downtown Concord and they're waiting for the bus. So I bring that up because in addition to the senior center, are you doing outreach to some of these, like the immigrant populations, both, long time as well as newcomers? Because I don't know where they're going, but it seems like they're finding a way to take the bus and they're taking it. And so they might be receptive to this.
Yeah, it's definitely an audience we'd want to add as we expand the program. For the initial launch, we are also thinking about what languages will have capacity to do translation. I think right now Spanish has been highlighted as a priority. And then at one of our outreach sessions, we met with someone who's looking for work, who's part of the Orinda senior community and speaks Farsi, and offered to do Farsi translation. So I'm keeping tabs of all these individuals. So when we get those requests from people asking for in-language services or in-language sessions, we can hopefully provide that. And so I think the more resources we can bring in, the more broader of a range of offerings we can provide that are tailored to different communities.
Thank you. Yeah, and my suggestion would be in Concord, the Noor Islamic Community and Cultural Center is really a hub. And so, maybe I can help make that connection with their director there, because I think that he would be open to hosting something like that.
I would love that.
So yes. Anybody, Commissioner Armstrong, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I had not previously known about this program, so, but a lot of times when I see new programs, money starts to come to mind about, because it's going to cost some money to implement the program, as well as there's some incentive there with the pre-funded Clipper cards and things like that. So I'm just curious, has this been built into this year's budget already?
Yes, we have put aside $150,000 for the initial launch of the program. Previously, we had allocated $145,000 through Measure X for this program to the transit agencies to deliver the service, but it wasn't utilized, and so we've been working on developing something countywide and kind of utilizing a similar budget of what was allocated, and this is all through Measure X funding.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, I had the same thought. Thank you, Commissioner Armstrong, for asking. Okay, anything from this direction? No, okay. All right, so thank you very much. Do we have anybody online who would like to make public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, we're closing the public comment and thanking you so much, Halima, for your presentation. As I know you don't require any direction with that. It was just informational. Thank you. Okay, so we are coming to the end of our meeting. So we're moving on to correspondence and communications. It doesn't look like we have received any correspondence or communications.
We
Is
have
that
not.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Chair's comments and report. Chair, please provide your comments. I will just share one very brief, I promise, piece of information that I think is relevant to the group. So on May 26th, we are scheduled, and by we, I mean the city of Concord, to sign the profit-sharing agreement with the Navy for the Naval Weapons Station. So this is a big, don't cheer yet, let me knock on some wood, but this is very important. We've never made it this far in the game of Tetris that is the redevelopment of the former Concord Naval Weapons Station. So what this means is, once this agreement is signed, that provides the business surety for Brookfield, our selected master developer, to move forward and put together the specific plan and have a planner in place working full-time on that. So it is a big deal, and it's going to be happening in theory before our next meeting here. So, so please wish us well in moving forward with that. Do we have any other commissioner comments? No? Okay, thank you. And Tim or Danielle, do you have anything that you would like to cover today?
Of course. Just another welcome to Nikki. This is her first planning committee at the dais, so just welcome, Nikki. And then just want to mention that our board workshop is next week, so hopefully you all have that on your calendars
Oh, I
and
didn't realize. Yes,
ready to
of course.
participate. So board workshop materials will be coming out probably today or tomorrow. Stay tuned. The staff reports are pretty simple, but the presentation is really where the review is going to be at. The workshop is really framed for the 2 days. The first day, we have confirmed majority participation of all the cities in Contra Costa County. So we only have, I think, 3 or 4 cities that we're still trying to get folks to attend. And so that's really good news, because we're going to have, again, like the board requested in November, last November, is to have a broad representation of the entire county at the next workshop. And so with that being said, there's going to be a lot of different, I'll say, knowledge building across the board. And so the first day is really going to be focused on knowledge building in terms of like Measure J, benefits of Measure J, how the expenditure plan, like we're literally going to hand out a copy of the Measure J expenditure plan to all the members that are in attendance, so you'll have a copy of it. But I think the other thing that we're going to do is print out that handy dandy acronym cheat sheet, right, for everyone to have. I know everyone enjoys the cheat sheet. And then the other thing is the second day is going to start really focusing on TEP process, right? So and going in depth in terms of what the process is going to look like in terms of, funding projections, allocations, identifying major investment programs, how we're going to evaluate major projects and programs, how we're going to include them into the TEP, and all the outcomes. So that's kind of the day 2. So that's it. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anything, Danielle?
Maybe just to add, the TFCA call for projects went out late last week, so all the RTPCs in all the cities were notified. And we're doing open office hours for the next 2 weeks to answer any questions folks have about that. And then in the coming months, we'll also be bringing the OBAG for TLC BPTF cycle call for projects as well. Right now, it's finishing going through the RTPCs.
Thank you. All right. Well, if there's nothing further, we are adjourned. So thank you very much.